Welcome to the Oakless channel. Thanks for watching today, and let's continue our journey to finish every single Game Boy and Game Boy Color game. Today focus on a game called Blaster Master Enemy Below for the Game Boy Color. Now, when I first loaded the game up here, I thought it was a straight port of the NES game because it's like the same character graphics, the same background graphics, the same music, the same overall atmosphere, the same gameplay progression. However, it's not going to be a port of the NES game. It's actually a sequel to that game, just simply built the same game engine. So like on first look, very easy to get it confused. Now, Blaster Master, I do have quite a bit of history with it growing up because we would rent it from the local drugstore all the time as kids. Like, I truly did love renting this game. However, I was never actually very good at the game, and I can't say I ever got past like level maybe 2 in the game, mainly because I simply didn't know where to go. It's a very confusing game, just simply figuring out which direction you need to go in and where you need to explore before you end up dying in the game here. However, it is a very unique experience because it's more of its own genre of game. Instead of being like a Metroidvania, I'd actually call it more of a Metroid Elda, because it's taking the aspects of Metroid and combining it with The Legend of Zelda, because the overworld or the overmap here is very much of a Metroid game. You have a little tank called Sophia. You get different upgrades like a hover boost or like a wall climb, different things like that, or a dive where you can like go for the water. And you can explore all different areas that you couldn't earlier once you get those boosts, just like a Metroid game. And then when you go into a catacombs here, it definitely has an overhead view, just like a Zelda game. And so I'm going to call it a Metroid Elda. And if that's already a category out there, then you can let me know in the comments down below. But as far as I know, it is the only Metroid Elda out there. Now, this particular game did get moved in our queue a bit because Agarza3356 requests I cover it sooner or later. So that moves up in the queue. If there's a game that you want to see me cover sooner or later, let me know the name of the game in the comments down below. And just like Blaster Master, the enemy below, I'll move it right on up in the queue. Now, I always like to start the videos off by looking at the box art for the game first. And the box art here, I can't say it's a great box art. It has a picture of the tank called Sophia right there on the cover. And I don't know, it's okay. It doesn't really describe the wacky world or the crazy world you're going to explore, any of the enemies or any of the overhead Zelda portions of the game. It's just simply your tank right there, lightning all around it. And if you didn't know any better, just looking at the cover, you might think it's like a racing game or like a battle tank type game. But no, I feel like the cover here is definitely not a very good cover. But you know, Blaster Master has never been like known for its accurate covers. Like the NES cover way back in the day had amazing cover. It's actually what made us rent it so often. And it was like the final boss in the game. It was an amazing looking monster and creature here. And like 99% of players never even got to see that in the actual game. And so, I don't know, Blaster Master has always had trouble with the covers, and so this is no exception, but it's simply not a very good cover. Now, when you start to go up here, you do have a pretty interesting cutscene, nowhere near as iconic as the NES one with the mutating frog going into the hole in the ground. I mean, it's like one of the all-time great video game intros, but still, you have like a science lab, a muscular marshmallow type man escaping from that, attacking one of the workers here. Obviously, chaos is beginning to erupt, and then one of the government employees from the first game approaches us and says like, hey, you saved the day in the last era. Time to suit up, get back into Sophia here, and go save the day all over again. And like I said, it's nowhere near as good as the NES one, but at the same time, this is not a port of the NES. It is a sequel to the NES, and so they are trying to continue on the storyline here. Now at this point, you're going to jump into the actual gameplay. You're going to be playing Sophia the tank, turning through like a grassland or caveland type area, taking out golems and spaceships and floating planes. A very interesting assortment of enemies, same as the NES, but still interesting nonetheless. But as you're journeying through the overworld here, of course, taking out the enemies with your little tank laser blast, you can also shoot like vertical by aiming the nozzle of the tank. That doesn't sound right. The barrel of the tank upward and shooting enemies out that way. But you're going to notice like all kinds of areas that you want to explore, you just simply can't get to yet. They're either too high up or like surrounded by water down below, or you need to like climb a wall to get there. And all of those are powers you're going to get later in the game, and you can come back to area 1 and explore the area even further to get like different power-ups or find different worlds to explore. And so like a true Metroid game, they're giving you hints of where you need to explore. You just simply can't get to it yet, so make that mental note of where you need to come back to. But what makes this game more unique than most of the other games, if you press select, you can actually hop out of the tank and you can play as Jason himself. And Jason's obviously very small here, not very durable. If he gets hits too many times, Jason passes away pretty darn fast. But at any time, you can hop back into the tank and get back out, and your health meter refills completely for Jason. And so use that to your advantage as you're exploring. But Jason's core function here is not to take on the brunt of the combat, but more to explore areas that the tank cannot go, but also to go into like little buildings down here called catacombs. Now, when you go into a catacomb, the entire gameplay is going to swap up 100%. Now you're playing like a Zelda-style game from the top down, playing as the Jason character himself. journeying through like basically a labyrinth of mazes here, trying to find different items and taking enemies out by shooting the laser blast out in front of you. And speaking of enemies, in the first area or the first world catacombs here, you're going to fight off like different Cyclops monsters or different like little green boxes that are going to approach you. Or the best one is like this little Terminator skull that comes down and tries to attack you as well. Now when you kill off an enemy, sometimes they're going to drop different items that you can pick up, like a P block, which is going to recover your health. You can also get an H block, which will recover the hover ability for your tank once you have the hover ability. Also different like secondary weapons like homing missiles for your tank. And you can also get like gun upgrades for your character of Jason himself inside the catacombs. Now there's a little gun meter down at the bottom left hand corner, and you can increase it up to 3 at this point, later on up to 8 once you get the appropriate upgrades. And every time you get like a little gun image here or a gun item, that little gun meter is going to go up, and your gun's going to get more powerful, either shoot further or have like different pattern rotations it goes out. It's a very handy thing to have. However, every time you get hit, your gun meter goes back down 1 slot. And so like you're going to lose it almost as fast as you get it. And truth be told, the only time I ever had like a fully maxed out weapon is when I simply farmed enemies in the area in order to max that little meter out. Now as you're journeying through the catacombs, you are going to want to explore every single catacomb that you come across, because the vast majority are going to have a key at the close. And if you save the keys up, you can unlock the boss catacombs, defeat the boss in the boss catacombs. You're going to get a different item for your ship, which is going to allow you to explore more areas on the overworld, and that is how the core progression of the game is going to take place. Now for area 1 here, you only need 1 key in order to unlock the boss catacombs. You go into it here, it's going to look like any of the other ones that you've already gone into, but at the close, instead of having a key, you're going to have a boss to go against. It's going to be like a giant flower type creature here with little tentacles coming out in front of it, or maybe like a root since it's a plant here. But its mouth is going to open up in the middle. You fire into the mouth here, and you can take the boss out in pretty much no time. Every boss has a weak point, and it's pretty easy to figure out. And the bosses are going to range from pretty darn easy to nearly impossible. We'll get to all of those here in just a little bit. But when you do defeat him, you do get an item power up for your ship, like I mentioned earlier. You get the high jump, so now your little tank here jumps way higher in the air, and there's different areas that you can now explore. So with the new high jump, I find a little platform higher up in the sky. I hop on up there and I head on into area number 2. Now area number 2 is going to be more of a stone red looking background for the most part. You have mechanical bees, mechanical hearts, mechanical skulls. You have a mechanical, looks like a Pokemon. I can't remember what the Pokemon name is, like a little mammoth looking Pokemon. I'll put a picture here, but it reminds me like a mechanical version of that. And the overworld is going to be pretty much the same as far as like different puzzles to solve or different areas to explore here. It's just simply going to be different enemies and different sort of color in the background. Now as far as the catacombs go, it's going to be very much of the same gameplay once again. Just simply changes the enemies out a little bit. You're going to have like mechanical lasers and mechanical eyeballs, still trying to keep up that theme a little bit. And once again, you're trying to collect keys in order to unlock the boss catacomb. And so we're going to jump on into the boss catacomb for this one, because there's not really a whole lot to say about the overall level itself. And the boss here is going to be a giant dragon, which really doesn't feel like the overall aesthetics of this particular level, unless you're taking like the fire red background from the overworld. Maybe that's what they're going with. But regardless, the boss here follows the exact same pattern every single time as you journey around the little level. And if you just head off to the upper right or the mid right here, and you just sort of fire away and there's one location, and then journey off 1 space to the left, and then back to the right and back to the left, you can avoid pretty much every single attack or every single little movement he's going to come at you here, and you can take him out pretty much in no time. And when you finish him off, you are going to get an engine reward, which I'm not really sure what the engine did exactly as far as like upgrading my ship, because it didn't like allow me to jump higher. It didn't allow me to seemingly do anything. And so if you know what the engine did, let me know in the comments down below. But regardless, we head on into area number 3 of the powers that we have. We get into this area, it's going to be more of a construction zone looking in the background. It reminds me of an area in the original NES TMNT games as far as like the colors go and like just sort of the balance of the colors. I don't know, it just reminds me very, very much of that. There's lots of exploring in this particular level here of having to like actually get out of the tank, climb different ladders and whatnot, and explore more as Jason. So a little bit more of a change of gameplay as we're going. The enemies in the overworld are very similar to what we've already had. But when we get into the catacombs, they are going to mix it up a little bit, because they have like these zombies that are going to sort of wander around. And it looks like they're getting ready to flash you, like they have their coats sort of, hugged tight. And then they sort of open it up, and then they sort of jump around the room a little bit. Not really sure what the power's about, but that's the best way I know how to describe them. You also have like these running robots. Like you can't really see them on the screen, and like as you're advancing, they sort of come flying down at a lightning pace here, and very hard to dodge. But if you can get through them here, I don't think they appear anymore throughout the entire rest of the game. They're isolated to just level 2. But as you're journeying through these catacombs, eventually you get to the boss, and the boss is going to be a giant frog, which I believe is the same frog from the original NES game. And he has a very telegraphed pattern here. He hops 3 times and then tries to attack. So just simply count to 3, stand off to the side, fire away. You'll have the frog taken out in literally no time at this point. And the tank upgrade for your victory is going to be the hover ability. So when you jump up in the air, you press the A button again, now you can sort of begin to fly all the way up in the air. And if you have the hover meter all the way to the max, you can fly pretty darn far up into the level. But just beware, like once you use that meter up, you have to kill enough enemies to replenish that. And so it's best to be fairly conservative with it. Now, after you finish off the boss in level 3, the game has really opened up quite a bit here, and it's also going to get very, very confusing as far as like where you need to go, how you need to advance. And so at this point, if you haven't used the guide yet, I would recommend start using the guide from this point on, because the levels are going to look very similar as far as like repeating areas. Like for example, when we go into level 4 here, it's a sewer level, and like as you're going through it, you go through one door, the next area looks exactly the same. You go through another door, it looks exactly the same. It's almost like the Lost Woods to a degree, except it's not. And so there's so many you have to go through. And if you have a guide, it can sort of help you navigate like which area you want to depart from the main path on in order to advance in the correct direction. But when you're in the sewer level here, you are going to get introduced to another little creature who is very, very annoying. I'm going to call him the little red worm. And there are different worms of different colors throughout the game. We simply encountered a little red worm first. And when he pops down here, you cannot actually hit him with your tank. You have to get out, fight him off with Jason, and then get back into the tank. And it's just a really annoying little critter, and you're going to encounter quite a few of them as you go. And speaking of play more of Jason, there are plenty of areas in Area 4 where we have to get out of the tank, navigate more of the ladders. There's one spot where you have to like jump from one ladder to the other ladder to the other ladder. Reminds me like in Donkey Kong Country, hopping from one vine to the other vine to the other vine. And eventually you get to like an ice cave here. But it's really odd because like when you're in the ice cave, you find a little catacomb to go into, and you're like in a lava level. And so you're like, how does that line up exactly? I'm not really sure. Plenty of purple, futuristic looking robots trying to overwhelm you in the catacombs of the lava here. But after you journey through enough of the catacombs, you got your keys, you head to the boss catacombs in the area. And this is going to be what I call a 3 bubble to hit monster, because he shoots out 3 bubbles and then you have the opportunity to hit him here. And very much of a slow dodge at the front of the screen seems to work best for me. But once you finish him off, you are going to get the gun number 1 as a power-up. And this allows you, when you're playing as Jason in the overworld, to get out of the tank. And you can shoot like little blocks here. And when you destroy the blocks, at that point, you can then take the tank through that, or you can explore some new areas. So once again, the Metroid way of playing here, upgrades to explore more areas throughout, is definitely at play. But speaking of the new gun ability that you get, this is going to unlock one of my favorite type of puzzles in the entire game. It's going to have like a wall of blocks that you have to like destroy here, but you have to figure out like the best pattern to go about in destroying those blocks in order to actually advance to get to the next catacomb or get like special items and things like that. And so they're going to have several of these throughout the game, and they do get progressively harder. But every time I saw one, I was like a little bit excited because I like, sweet, another block puzzle, because like just enough of a change of pace, and it's also sort of fallen to the puzzle game mechanics that I enjoy quite a bit. And so if you come across them, by all means, they're worth exploring. You get some really cool items, but I don't know, it's just simply, to me, one of the most fun parts of the entire game. But let's go ahead and move on into area number 5. Now, area number 5 is going to once again try to mix the gameplay up a little bit, because you're going to go into like a cave area, but the vast majority is not going to be fought inside this cave. Eventually, you come to like a little body of water. You hop into the body of water, your ship is going to sink all the way to the bottom because you do not have the dive ability yet. You have to get out of the ship, and you have to basically swim through the entire area just as Jason here. So they are trying their best to mix the gameplay up a little bit, because it's going to play mechanic-wise totally different, because you can navigate up, down, pretty much anywhere you want to. You don't have to worry about the falling physics or anything like that. Now, as far as new enemies, you're going to have like a little human figure who's going to try to attack you. Perhaps that's a shark. I'm not really sure, but it's a killing robot coming after you, and they track you pretty much endlessly here. And also little jellyfish that are going to be floating about as well. You could almost say the jellyfish harken back to Metroid, so maybe another connection between the two games here. Maybe, maybe not. Now, as you're going through the catacombs, the boss for the Area 5 catacombs is going to be a giant clam boss, which fits completely perfectly with the overall aesthetics of the level. Sometimes the boss doesn't match up. This boss definitely matches up 100%. They basically have one giant clam at the top, a couple beneath that, and then a whole row of smaller clams. And if you use your rocket launcher for these, which is the other attack button inside the catacombs, you can take them out pretty darn quickly. But this is definitely the hardest one thus far, because it's not like a super easy pattern to just figure out and just take them out like that. But the newest ability you're going to get for your victory here is going to be the dive attachment for your tank. And now you can basically swim anywhere you want to in your actual tank, which allows you to explore more further out into the overworld. And when I say the overworld here, like by this point, we're getting to a pretty obnoxiously huge map. I'll see if I can find a picture online of like the entire Blaster Master Enemy Zero world, because this is a enormous game. I would not hesitate to say it's bigger than the NES one, and I'd certainly say it's bigger than the original Metroid that's out there. It is a enormous game, and if I can get a picture of the map, you'll see just exactly how large this game truly is. Now, when we get into area number 6 here, this is going to be our true ice world in the game. We had a little bit of a hint of an ice world earlier. This is a full-blown ice world. All the mechanics are going to focus around like slippery, slidey ice that you're going to jump on here. It's actually more obnoxious than you might realize, because like some of the areas when you're trying to hop on your little tank here, man, it's just like really difficult, and when you fall all the way back down to the very beginning. And there's even one spot in this level where they're starting to focus on like blind jumps, so you're like just simply having to jump off the edge, no idea where any of the platforms are, and when you miss, you have to fall all the way back down to the very bottom. I can't really say I'm a fan of like blind jumps in games, because it's just punishing for really no reason, and the game hasn't fallen into that category at all up until this point, and now they're just sort of doing an artificial difficulty with those blind jumps. Now, as far as like the catacombs go in this area, you are going to get to the boss here, and the boss is going to be a giant, almost like an alien creature. Maybe something you see like in the Contra games. It's possible he's the monster from the first NES cover. I'm not really sure. I never actually got to the end of the NES game, so I can't say if it's the same one or not, but it definitely has some similarities there. How it relates to the overall story, who knows? I don't think this game like even tries to follow a story at all, because the majority of this does not line up with anything we saw in the intro, and even at the end of the game, like the final boss. I won't spoil it. We'll get to that here in a little bit. But as far as like taking this boss out, if you just simply fire away at its lower jaw here, you can take him out pretty quickly. He's not as hard as the clam boss, but he's definitely harder than some of the earlier ones that we had throughout the game. Now, when you do defeat him, you get the wall climb ability, or wall 1. And this allows you to basically hop on the wall or run up to a wall, and you sort of start climbing the wall. Now, there's some surfaces that you can't go on, so it's not like the perfect wall climbing ability. You're going to get wall 2 a little bit later, but at this point you are able to climb walls, and you can explore so much more of the game. I mean, like this game here, like as far as like exploration goes, I can't think of another game that allowed you to have so much freedom as this particular game. But also with that freedom of exploration comes a lot of confusion, and so like figuring out where to go, where to get different items, it does become overwhelming. So if you have a guide, I would recommend it, because at this point I have like literally no idea where to go in the game, and it turns out you had to go like to level 1, then level 4, and then level 7 in order to advance. Like to try to figure that out, you could spend hours exploring for this game and still not figure it out. So a guide is going to be your best bet here. And also just simply find like some of the smaller upgrades like gun 2 or shotgun, stuff like that. You're definitely going to want to have a guide to get like some of the upgrades for your character. I'm not going to go into all of that as far as like discovery in the video here. Now, Area 7 is a true cave level, almost what you would expect from like Blaster Master Part 1 when you first launched into that cave. It looks very similar to that. You're finally getting into that part. Now, as far as like the soundtrack of the game goes, most of the soundtrack of the game is pretty good. But this song here in the level 7 is the best song in the entire game. There's something about it like really pulls you in, just has like that driving beat behind it. I'll let a little bit of it play right here. Like I said, I think it's the best song in the entire game, and even if you don't play Blaster Master, this song itself is worth looking up and possibly adding to your gaming playlist. But as you're journeying through the caves here, there's not a whole lot to write home about themselves until you go into the catacombs. It's like a true hellscape inside the catacombs. Like you have a background here, almost looks like burnt muscle sort of stretching off in the background. It's like, are you playing a Doom game? Are you playing a Blaster Master game? Like what artistic direction are they trying to go in for this game? Because they're definitely getting on the darker side here, and you would hope with like such a dark looking catacomb or such a evil looking catacomb, the boss for this level is going to be just fantastic through the roof, and instead you get like a giant jellyfish that only shoots a bubble in one direction. You stand off to the side and take it out. It's like, what the heck? Like, how can you not put an epic boss with such an epic catacomb background? It makes me wonder, like, are the bosses like mixed up from the NES game, and like some of the backgrounds were supposed to be for like different bosses? I think that maybe what's happening here, because some of the bosses just simply, they just don't make a lot of sense. Now, when you do finish the jellyfish off, you're going to get wall ability number 2. So you can pretty much climb on any wall, upside down, on any surface, and you can really explore now truly anything in the entire game, which is going to lead us into level number 8. Now, to get there, you have to go back to level number 2. To figure that out would take like an eternity, so a guide is going to help us quite a bit there. And when we get to level 8 here, it is definitely the best level in the entire game. Like the overall background aesthetics here, very 80s, very retro wave. The color scheme is just literally perfect here. And even like the obstacles in the background, yes, they are very, very difficult, but it is by far the best obstacles inside the entire game. There's no more like just sort of aimless wandering, taking out little enemies here. There are spikes, there are pits, there are true like paths you have to go on. This is the best level in the entire game. Even when you get into the catacombs, that retro wave aesthetic continues here. I'm telling you, like, this is just a fantastic level, pretty much start to finish. The only thing I can say like negative about this level is some of the overall wall mechanic puzzles. They are a little bit tedious and they may take a little bit long. They're going to be hard because like you have to basically travel up the wall here and have to travel across a section here. It's going to take you probably like 2 or 3 minutes. And if you miss up a single time or get hit a single time, you fall back down to the bottom. You have to do it all over again, which is very annoying. But at least they're trying to mix the gameplay up a little bit. Now when you get to the boss catacombs, now the boss catacombs here are they're very difficult. Now when you go through it, there are going to be plenty of opportunities for upgrades, so you're going to be able to get your weapon all the way upgraded. And before you go into the final boss area, I do recommend just sort of staying outside of here, farming the area to get your weapon all the way to the max, and also get your health all the way to the max right before you go in, because this boss here, it is ridiculous. Now, I took so many tries at this boss, but it's basically a giant amoeba, and it's going to shoot out like little lasers at you, but at the same time, it's going to fire out amoebas themselves to try to attack you, and there's so much dodging that's involved in this, and if you have your weapon fully upgraded, it's going to help immensely. But like I said earlier, every time you get hit, the weapon upgrade is going to go down one, so you're going to lose that weapon upgrade in pretty much no time. But this boss here is just simply a different level of difficulty from the rest of the bosses in the game, as far as like the number of hits that it's going to take, as far as like simply the strategy involved. This is a different beast compared to the rest of the game, and when you do lose here, you have to start back the entire level 8 all over again, which is even extra punishing. And so there's no reason to put like this extreme difficult boss at the end of this extreme difficult level, because the majority of players are never going to actually be able to finish your game when you just sort of up the difficulty so much here at the close. Now, I was able to figure out when you're fighting the amoeba, if you just simply stand off to the upper left-hand side, and it's hard to get this position just right. Like, it took me several tries to get it. When you're here, you can finally fire off, and the amoeba like gets sort of stuck, not being able to hit you going back left and right. You can take out a great number of the different amoeba little tanks or laser shooters here. Now, eventually, the amoeba that's going back and forth will start coming towards you. You just simply move over one step at a time. And even this, it's going to be hard to time it right. But to me, this is the only way to actually defeat the boss here. And once you defeat the green amoeba, then a red amoeba is going to appear. And at this point, I was just like, you know what, screw it. And I just simply went up there and just started firing away as much as I could of what little I had left. And the red amoeba can be taken out pretty much just simply by overload of power here. Now, once you defeat him, we do get another little cutscene. This cutscene is nowhere near as good. It's a little bit confusing. You pick up like a piece of the amoeba, you throw it on a fire in front of you, and you say like, well, that's the last we'll see of him. Then we have a couple little cutscenes of us saying goodbye to Sophia. At this point, the credits begin to roll, and we have a final end scene of our helmet and our outfit. And I guess sort of sitting there waiting for our next Blaster Master adventure. Now, the closing is fine and all, but like my biggest question is where is that marshmallow creature or that marshmallow muscular creature from the very beginning of the game that broke out from the lab? That was our primary antagonist. We never saw that creature anywhere in the game. So like, is that going to be in the next Blaster Master game? Like, what happened? Like, I don't know. Like, the storyline for this game is, it's not great. I feel like it's convoluted. I feel like they just sort of attached the cutscene to the end, attached the cutscene to the beginning, and they just sort of rolled with it. I don't really think there's any true Blaster Master lore or true Blaster Master storyline to even really want to follow, except that you're a human, you find the tank, and you explore all these areas, and then you save the world at the close. And so, I don't know, the storyline is very rough, but let's talk about the game as an overall here, because I am very conflicted about this game, because there are some aspects I really do like, and there are some aspects that I really just dislike quite a bit. Now, as far as like a genre of a game goes, a Metroid Zelda, as I called it, is a fantastic genre to go in. I love Metroid, I love Zelda, so why not combine the two? And that's just simply a match made in heaven as far as like mixing two gameplay types. But I can't say they pulled it off perfectly, because both on the Metroid side and the Zelda side of things, there were some things that were just very frustrating and sometimes infuriating inside the game. Like, take the Zelda side first. Like, the huge difficulty spike at the close of the game, like it like came out of nowhere. There was no reason for it to get that hard that fast at the very close of the game. But also like the idea, like every time you upgrade your gun, every time you get hit, you lose that upgrade. Like, make it a little bit more fair, like, because you're going to lose that upgrade so incredibly fast, you never get to really experience the true power of what your character can have. And it makes it feel almost worthless to upgrade, because you know you're going to lose it so incredibly quickly. And then there's the Metroid side of things. It's simply trying to figure out like where to go, what to do next. The game is enormous. And like I said earlier, there's nothing wrong with an enormous game as long as they give you some sort of clue or some sort of hint of where to go and somewhat of a direction. This game here, it basically gave you a new upgrade and said, all right, go back through the entire game again, explore every corner to try to figure out where to go. And it was just simply overwhelming and overwhelmingly frustrating when it came to that. And so the game does have some cool parts about it. The idea of having all these different upgrades to explore the areas, having the Zelda side of things as well, trying to explore the catacombs, getting different weapon upgrades. I enjoyed a lot of aspects of the game. I feel like it's a cool game as an overall, but it's just simply, it has not aged very well. And I feel like maybe future Blaster Masters or some of the sequels, I might really enjoy. But coming back to this one, I cannot see myself probably ever playing all the way through this game again. And it makes a whole lot of sense playing on the NES growing up, why I never got past like the first 2 levels. Just simply, it's not a game that is very easily traversed or beaten as an overall. So I'd probably give the game a 5.5 out of 10, maybe a 6 out of 10. No, 5.5 out of 10. Because I did get very frustrated as I was journeying through it. It probably took me close to 20 hours, maybe 25 hours to finish the game, and I can't say I enjoyed every hour of that. But what are your thoughts about Blaster Master Enemy Below? Let me know in the comments down below. As always, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, check out my other videos listed up above, and go out there, find a great game to play, simply have a great rest of the day.